Okay. Moving on to the second part of the presentation, which is style and tone. The important thing about style and tone here is that there is an enormous cultural difference between English ways of doing things and Italian things. And I want to illustrate that with a nice little clip from a recent film. I wonder if any of you know it.
Caro signor Keegan, most respected and famoso mercante di Manchester.
Yes, sir.
I am in grande gratitudine for the massive and importante bundle of silk which will bring lacrime allegre to the eyes of molte bellissime signore Florentine.
Thank you for the consignment of fabric. It is up to your usual standard.
Please accept, signore, my most humble compliments and sincerissimi good wishes.
Yours sincerely.
And as well as, that's all for today.
Okay, I apologize there because the timing went wrong. Technical error, but I hope that you all understood what was happening. Did anybody recognize the film?
Vediamo se qualcuno si ricorda di questo film, che l'ha visto, magari se lo ricorderà. Sì, dice Silvana, ma qualcuno si ricorda il titolo di questo film, ricorda questa scena.
The film was Tea with Mussolini by Franco Zeffirelli, which is about a group of English expatriates living near Florence. And it's truly, the whole film, starting with the director, is a mixture of English and Italian culture. So it's quite a good symbolic thing to use in a lesson like this. Of course, the letter is a total pastiche, a joke, but it illustrates quite well what the problem is. The problem is that Italian and English use different conventions for courtesy. You can see that the Italian is long and the English is short. The Italian uses lots of elegant words and the English is very factual, very simple. Okay. A lot of people, when they come to write emails in English, don't want to abandon the Italian standards of courtesy because they are afraid of this cold style in English, or what they perceive to be cold. I want to persuade you differently. I want to show you why we English do it like this. First of all, direct English is good style, and I want some help from some important people here just to persuade you better. This is the first page of perhaps the most important book written on English grammar. It's The King's English by Henry Fowler, written almost exactly 100 years ago. Notice the advice given right at the beginning. Fowler's advice is to use simple, direct language. Here, he's not talking about any particular area of English. He's talking about all written English. And of course he wants to make life difficult for Italians and French trying to work in English, because he says use the Germanic words. Here, 40 years later, there's a similar list, rather towards the end of George Orwell's seminal essay, Politics and the English Language. Orwell was writing only about journalism, but his advice can be applied to almost any English anywhere. I want you to notice in particular, he says never use a foreign phrase, a scientific word, or a jargon word if you can think of an everyday English equivalent. What he is really saying is do not try to impress people with elegant language. it is likely to have the opposite effect. George Orwell was writing just after the war, but we can bring this up to date because The Economist, one of the best pieces of English writing, certainly English journalism around currently, puts the same pieces of advice on its style guide, saying that the advice is valid just as much today as it was in 1950. By the way, for anybody who wants to read more about how to write plain, good, direct English, I recommend the rest of the style guide because the advice is entertaining and very, very good.
Posso, scusami, dire una cosa, David, che non abbiamo
Yes.
detto all'inizio, che tutti questi riferimenti che tu stai dando sono poi contenuti in un mini sito web di cui darai l'indirizzo più tardi.
Absolutely.
Ok, grazie. Quindi non dovete prendere appunti perché vi faremo avere poi un sito fatto apposta per questo. Ok, scusami.
If we get time, I'll even show it to you. Moving on, round about the same time as George Orwell, we have a very important book, which is The Complete Plain Words, written shortly after the Second World War, with a specific job to reform the language used by the British public administration. But the book was so good that everybody everywhere writing English for work wanted a copy and wanted to learn from it. I want you to notice simple and brief is part of the basic advice. Use the most simple, direct language. Avoid obscure words and phrases, unnecessary words, long sentences. And be as brief as possible. This is all very, very good advice, even if sociologists everywhere ignore it totally. But these people, however good their advice, were not writing about email. They were writing about general English, ordinary English, good English, specifically general. The reason is because we value the message. We think that if you convey the message in the simplest way possible, it is a form of courtesy, especially when the other person doesn't have much time. And we all know when we read emails ourselves that we are always racing to do the next thing.